If you've been following this channel for the past month or so, you might already be familiar with my unattended Winstall GitHub repo, where I shared some of my pre-made unattended answer files with you. And I've gotten a lot of requests from you guys to create a guide on how you can create your own unattended answer file for Windows 10 and Windows 11. So in this video, I want to take you through a step-by-step process on how you can use the Sneegans website to generate your own unattended answer file for Windows 10 or Windows 11. So to get to this webpage, you can just do a Google search for the Sneegans unattended generator, and then you can open this webpage here. Or if you go to my unattended Winstall GitHub repo, if you scroll down on this page, you'll also see that you can just click on this unattended generator link here, and then it's going to take you to the web page. So you can use this website to create your own answer files to perform unattended Windows installations, and this works on both Windows 10 and Windows 11. Now let's go through the settings that you can choose here so you can automate your Windows installs. So you can automate this part of the Windows setup if you want to choose your region and language settings here. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to leave the default language on English, but I'm going to change the date and time format to English South Africa because that's where I live. So you would obviously just choose these settings according to where you live in the world. You can select your default keyboard layout here. Mine is US, so that's fine. I'm just going to leave that. And then the country or region is also correct because I already set it up there, so it just changed this value as well. Now you can also add secondary keyboard layouts here if you want. I'm not going to be doing that. Or if you don't want to automate this part of the setup, you can just click on this button here. So you can select your language settings interactively during the Windows setup. So that just means this part of the Windows setup won't be automated. But like I said, for this video, I'm going to be using this setting here. And obviously, if you're intending to use this answer file on different locations in the world, then you would probably want to use this setting here. For the CPU settings here, most people will be using Intel or AMD 64-bit. So if you don't know what this setting means, most probably you should just leave it on 64-bit. But as you can see here, when you select multiple of these processor settings, then a single auto unattended XML file will be created that's applicable to all of these architectures. So what you can do here is you can hold down Control on your keyboard and then you can select all of these settings here. So that just means the answer file will work on whatever hardware you have because you've selected all of these settings. So I'm going to leave all of that selected. Next, for the setup settings, you can bypass the Windows 11 requirements if you want. You'll obviously want to check this setting if your computer doesn't support Windows 11. But if your PC supports Windows 11, then you don't have to check this. I'm going to select it for this video. And then also, do you want to allow Windows 11 to be installed without an internet connection? I'm going to check this box as well because it just makes the Windows 11 setup process so much easier. Next, in the computer name settings, you can either let Windows generate a random computer name, which is the default setting, or you can choose a computer name for yourself. So once again, if you're planning on installing this on a whole bunch of different computers for different people, maybe it's going to be best if it just generates a random computer name, but you have the option to choose a computer name yourself. So I'm just going to call mine Memory PC, just for the sake of this video. And then for the time zone, you can either let Windows determine your time zone based on the language and region settings, which is most probably the default Windows setting, or you can set your time zone explicitly. I'm just going to leave it on the default Windows setting so it can determine based on my language and region settings. And then the partition and formatting, you can partition your disk interactively during the Windows setup, which is what I'm going to be doing in this video, where you basically select a drive during the Windows installation. But you also have the option of automating this, where you can let the Windows setup wipe, partition and format your hard drive, or more specifically disk 0 using these settings. So most probably using this setting would be best if you only had one physical disk in your computer, one hard drive or SSD. Then you can select these settings to either choose a GPT or MBR layout. And then you also have some settings with regards to the Windows recovery partition, where you can either install it on a recovery partition, or you can install the recovery partition on the Windows partition, or you can remove the Windows recovery partition altogether. But as you can see here, it seems that in Windows 24H2, this setting is ignored and it'll always create a recovery partition with a minimum size of 600 megs. So that's at the time of recording this video. But you also have the option to use a custom disk part script to configure your disks, and you also have some settings down here if you choose to use that. For most people, I would just recommend leaving this on partition the disk interactively during the Windows setup. So moving on to the next section, for the Windows Edition, you can either use a generic product key. So basically what this means is you can already select the Windows Edition that you want to install. So for example, you can choose Home or Pro or any of these other versions. I'm going to select Pro in this video. So as you can see, it uses a generic product key to install Windows, but Windows will not activate with this key. It's not a key to activate Windows, it's just a key to determine which version of Windows you want to install. And then you can obviously enter your own product key later so you can activate Windows. Then you also have the option of entering your own product key here. So if you select this option, you'll have to manually edit the unattended.xml file, and then you need to find this key section here and then replace these numbers with your Windows product key. So it'll install Windows using your product key that you have. For this guide, I'm just going to use a generic product key and install the Pro edition of Windows. Now, when it gets to user accounts, you can let Windows Setup create the following local or offline accounts. So it seems you can create up to 5 users here, and then you can also say to which group it must belong. So for example, administrators or normal users. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to remove the one user account and we'll only create one account, which is going to be an admin account, meaning it'll have full rights. And I'm going to call this memory, and the password, I'm just going to remove that and leave it blank because that's going to be my user profile. Then you have some other settings here where you can choose how you want to log on for the first time. So you can either log on with the first administrator account that you created here, which is going to be this account, or you can activate the built-in administrator account that's included in every version of Windows 10 and 11, or you can choose not to log on at all and then the installation will just end with the sign-in screen being shown. For this video, I'm just going to log on to the first admin account created above, which is this one, and that's going to be the user account that I'll be using in any case. Then you also have the option to obscure all account passwords with base 64. Basically, this could just add another layer of security to your password. But I don't even have a password created here, so I'm not going to select this, but you can select that if you want to. Or you have the option to add user accounts interactively during the Windows setup. So you usually choose this if you want to use a Microsoft or online account. Then we have some password settings. So we can set passwords to not expire, or we can use the Windows default, which is 42 days, or you can use a custom password expiration value. Now, these settings only apply to local accounts, and the password for the built-in administrator account never expires. So for this video, I'm just going to set it to passwords do not expire. I'm not going to be using a password in this installation in any case, but you need to set these settings to whatever you want to have it set to. Then you also have some settings with regards to account lockout policy. You can use the default policy, which will lock you out of an account after 10 failed attempts. You can disable this policy, but that might leave your computer vulnerable to brute force attacks. So I wouldn't recommend doing this, or you can use a custom policy. I'm just going to use the default policy here. And then we have some optimizations and tweaks that we can do. So for one example, you can disable Windows Defender here. I'm not going to be selecting that in this video, but it is an option that you can use. Obviously, I don't really recommend doing this because you don't have any built-in security into Windows then. But as you can see, this also disables certain services, and they're all listed here. So you can have a look at that to see what each of them does. And then you also have the option, if you select this, to disable the Windows Defender services early. And this is most probably if you're going to be using Windows 11 24H2. Because if you don't do this, then you won't be able to disable the services during the later stages of the setup. But like I said, I'm not going to be using that in this video example, but just know that this is an option. Then you can also disable system protection or system restore. And you would probably want to do this if you want to use less disk space, but I recommend leaving system protection turned on. You can enable long file paths, which I think is a really good setting to have selected. So I'll select that. You can enable remote desktop services, and you can select that if you're going to be using that. Then you have this harden ACL setting. So this basically removes the write permissions on the C drive for the authenticated users group. And as you can see, this just prevents some users from creating folders on your C drive, such as C Windows, for example. You don't want that to happen. So you can use this setting if you basically want to stop people from breaking the computer. In this example, I'm not going to be selecting this. And then you also have the option of allowing execution of PowerShell scripts. And this allows you to run unsigned PowerShell script files. Now, this could be a bad idea. You should never run PowerShell scripts from any sources that you don't know where they come from. but leaving this setting disabled could provide you some more protection on your computer, especially if you're not that tech savvy. But in this example, I'm going to select that because I will be running PowerShell scripts on my computer. Then next you have this option to do not update the last access timestamp, and this can have some effect on your file system performance. So I'm going to select that for this video. You can check this option to not reboot with any users signed in. I'm just going to leave that unchecked. You can turn off system sounds. You can disable app suggestions, and I'm definitely going to check that because this is going to prevent the silent download and installation of any suggested apps by Microsoft, and that basically is a lot of the bloatware that Microsoft puts into Windows these days. You have the option to disable the widgets, which is that Bing News and Weather widget that you have in Windows. You can prevent the automatic BitLocker encryption on Windows 11, and I would definitely suggest checking this box here. You can use the classic right-click menu in Windows 11. I'm definitely going to be selecting that. And then you also have this option to audit process creation events. So each time a new process is created, Windows writes an event to the security log, and this is a very powerful tool for troubleshooting. And then you can also include command line in log events if you want to use this setting. I'm not going to be selecting that in this video, but that is an option. Then if you're planning on using this on virtual machines, you can pre-install these guest editions and tools for the virtual machine software that you're going to use. I'm not going to be using that in this video, so we'll go on to the next section, which is the wireless LAN or Wi-Fi setup. So this setting is basically that screen where you have to connect to your Wi-Fi network during the Windows setup. So here you also have the option to automate this, where you can already enter your network name or SSID, and then also the password and the authentication type. For this video, I'm just going to skip the Wi-Fi configuration because I'm not going to be connecting using Wi-Fi anyway. And then you also have some other options here with regards to the Wi-Fi where you can configure it using an XML file. We're not going to be looking at that in this video, so we'll continue with the Express settings here. And that's the privacy settings where it asks you if you want to send diagnostic data and personalized input and your location history to Microsoft. So you have the option to disable all of this, which I definitely suggest you leave selected. You can enable it all, or you can choose the settings during the Windows setup. I really recommend just disabling this. Then you have the option to remove bloatware, and this basically removes all of the apps that come pre-installed in Windows. So what you can do here is you can click on select all, and then you can just deselect the apps that you actually want to have installed on Windows. So from my experience, most people want to have Calculator installed as well as Notepad. So you can leave the modern Notepad selected and the classic Notepad. They also want Paint. They want the snipping tool. Some people want Terminal. And then some of you also want the Xbox app. I'm not going to be selecting that in this video, but basically you have the option of choosing which apps you want to get pre-installed in Windows 10 or 11. So as you can see here, the developer says that the bloatware removal works best with the original Windows 10 and 11 ISO files. He didn't perform any tests with custom images. So I also recommend just using the original Windows 10 or 11 ISO images. Don't use any custom Windows images. It's a huge security risk. And then also, if you select one or more of these apps to remove, the shortcuts and tiles and pinned icons will all be removed from the start menu as well. So this basically cleans up the start menu in Windows 10 and 11 as well. Now we get to the section where we can run custom scripts. So here you have a lot of options. You can run scripts in the system context before user accounts are created. Then if you scroll down, you can also run scripts that modify the default user's registry hive. Now, in my experience with creating these pre-made answer files, there is an issue that some of the registry entries that you create on this default user's registry hive, it doesn't actually get applied when you create a new user in Windows. So for this section here, I would just recommend don't even bother entering anything here. You can rather just use this part of the script where you can run script whenever a user logs on for the first time. So what this looks like is if we scroll all the way back and we have a look at scripts to run in the system context before user accounts are created. If we go to my answer files that I created and we have a look at the standard file, if you have a look at the code here, you're going to see that I have a local machine file, and that is this file here, which is the local machine.cmd file. So there's a lot of registry entries that I added here. So what you can do is you can go through the list of registry entries that I created, and then you can select whatever you want to have applied to your local machine, to the whole computer, because that's what HKLM means. it's going to be applied to the local machine, the entire computer. Then you can select whatever you want to select here and then paste it into your script file here as a CMD file. So as you can see, you can choose CMD file. This one is going to be a PowerShell script file. This one is going to be a registry file, and this will be a VBS script. But what I did is I created registry entries in a CMD script. So just as an example, let's say that I want to use these settings where I want to disable the activity history for the entire machine. Then you can just come over and you can copy these settings here, and then you can paste it into this CMD section. And then you can go ahead and copy and paste as many of these options, or you can even do your own research for commands that you want to run in a CMD file in the system context before user accounts are created. So remember, this will apply to the local machine, meaning I don't need a user account to make these changes to the local computer. So you can run whatever scripts you want here, but if we go all the way down to the other section where you can write a script to run whenever a user logs on for the first time, and you go back to my unattended answer files, you'll also see that I have a current user file. So here you'll see I have a current user.cmd file, and this will basically run once each time a new user logs on for the first time. And these all apply to the current user. So what you can do in this case is, in my example, I'm just going to copy this entire script that I wrote for the current user. I'm just going to copy that, and then I'm going to put it into this CMD box here. So that means all of these settings is going to apply to the current user as soon as it logs on for the first time. Now below here, you can see how these scripts will be run if you're interested in that. And once again, you don't have to just use my settings. You can do your own research and add whatever entries or whatever command to prompt scripts, PowerShell scripts, registry files, whatever you want to add to your Windows installation, you can add that. I'm just using the stuff I already created as an example for creating or customizing your own unattended answer file. Now moving on, you have the Windows Defender application control. So you can configure a policy here if you want, and you can configure it using these settings. I'm not going to be using that in this video. I'm just not going to configure that policy. And then you also have some placeholders for more components. So you can generate some more templates for all available components. And you can have a look at all of these components here that you can use to automate your Windows installs. I'm not going to be using that in this video. It's a bit more advanced, but you can do your own research on this if you want to add even more components to your Windows installation here. So once you've filled out all of those settings, now you can download your XML answer file, or you can download an ISO file with the XML file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the XML file. That's going to be saved on my desktop. So if I minimize my browser, I now have this auto unattended XML file here. And if I open that, it's going to open with Cursor, which is my code editor. And then you can see all of the settings exactly like you selected it. And you can now even make more changes to this file and add even more settings if there's something you forgot. But as you can see, here is the CMD scripts that I copy and pasted. And like I said, you can run your own command prompt scripts, own PowerShell scripts. You can do whatever you want by using this auto unattended generator that's created by Schneegans. And you can just automate a whole bunch of the Windows installation process. Now, I've already made a step-by-step video showing you exactly how you can include this auto unattended answer file on your Windows installation media and then install Windows with that. So I'm not going to be showing you how to do that in this video, but I will link that video at the end of this video and in the description of this video. But as you can see on screen now, while I'm installing Windows, a lot of the stuff that you would normally have to select manually is already automated for me, which saves a lot of time. And as you can see after the installation, it also loaded into my user profile automatically and ran that current user script that I copy and pasted. And as you can see now, dark mode is enabled, and if we have a look at all of the apps here, only the apps that I selected to be installed on my computer is installed, like Paint, Notepad, the snipping tool. And then if we go to settings and we have a look at the privacy settings here and we go to the activity history, you'll see that this is all turned off because remember, that's one of the parts of the script that I copy and pasted to run on the local machine, which affects the entire computer. So that's how you can generate your own answer file, and I hope this video was useful to you. If it was, please give it a like, and I'll talk to you guys soon.